All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Midiwe, to those of you who speak Kinyarwanda. Sorry, we had a couple of technical difficulties, but it looks like we are up and running now. Zoom gave me a different passcode than was required for this meeting. But nonetheless, we are persevering and we are here. And so thank you so much for joining us. On behalf of Legacy of Excellence Academy, I just want to name my appreciation for you for giving us some of your time on a Sunday. You know, this is usually the day right before the work week starts where you take your last deep breath and you sort of decompress before getting into the busyness of a new week. And so we are really grateful to have a slice of your time tonight. In a few seconds, we're going to do introductions to kick us off tonight. But before we do that, I just want to mention that we will not have a Q&A session today, just in the interest of time. We want to be, we're starting a little bit late today, but that's okay. And so that does not mean that we don't want your questions. We do want all of your questions, every single one of them. We will provide you with an email address at the end of tonight's session where you can please fill up the inbox with all of your questions. We just, again, want to be mindful of time and people's schedules and not have a Q&A today. All right. So let's start off with introductions. I am joined today by our wonderful, wonderful Vice Chair, Mrs. Simone Lynch. I'm going to pause and sort of give her the floor to introduce herself.
Thank you. It wasn't allowing me to unmute. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. As Dr. Chooks mentioned, my name is Simone Lynch, and I am the Vice Chair on the Board of Directors. I've spent 27 years in education, and still ongoing, never ends, because I love it. Specifically in ed policy and ed policy administration in the States. So I'm really just happy to be here and sharing this wonderful info session today. So back to you, Chooks.
All right, thank you so much, Simone. We're so blessed to have Simone on our board. As for me, I am Dr. Ekwelum. I promise you that is the same person who is on the screen. That is me. That's just me when my face was a bit more bushy. Yes, I am going into my 12th year in education. I really can't believe how fast it has gone by. It has been 12 of the most transformative years of my life. During that time, during my career in education, I've been blessed to have the opportunity to see education from different angles and different perspectives, different levels. And so I started off my career as a classroom teacher. I taught high school humanities, which is a combination of English language arts and history. Then went on to be an instructional coach for some time, then an assistant principal, worked as a principal, did a little bit of time in higher ed as an adjunct professor. And then now I'm the proud co-founder and executive director of Legacy of Excellence Academy. And so, you know, it's been great just working with students and working with the people who are entrusted with the care of those students. Man, during this time, I've learned a lot. I've learned how to be patient, definitely. I've learned compassion, and it's just made me a better man being in this profession. So I'm honored to still be doing it, and will continue to do it until I'm no longer here. All right. Okay. So Legacy of Excellence Academy here in Kigali, Rwanda. Before we dive into the next few slides, you know, when you ask students, particularly adolescents, hey, how was school today? Okay, and you'll be lucky if you get one word answer, sometimes maybe two, right? But usually the adjectives that they use, sometimes they might say boring, which we don't want to hear that, of course, right? But one adjective that they often use is school is hard, right? School was hard today. And I think we can all agree that school should be hard, school should be challenging, correct? But at Legacy of Excellence Academy, we don't want school to just be hard, just be challenging. We want it to be meaningful. Okay, we want our students to say school was meaningful today. School was inspiring. School was motivating, right? And so in the next few slides, we're going to show you the ways in which we are seeking to make the educational experience at Leia all those things, right? Meaningful, inspiring, motivating, okay? What we're going to show you today is merely a snapshot of our school. It's not everything there is to Leia, but again, we're showing you maybe just a high-level overview of the main points of what makes Leia unique, okay? So let's start with who we are. Leia, we are an independent school for students in grades 7 through 12. And so you might ask yourself, well, what is an independent school? An independent school is a type of private school, but what distinguishes it from other types of private schools is that it is typically governed by a board of directors, or in some schools, they're known as board of trustees or board of governors. And so the main difference is the governance style. Just like other private schools, independent schools are exactly what they sound like, independent from the government. And so the government doesn't have direct oversight over these schools. So there's typically freedom in how you roll out curriculum, freedom in how you schedule your calendar for the year, things like of that nature. We are a nonprofit organization. And so this just simply means that all money that comes into Leia, be it through grants, private donations, or school fees, all go towards school operations and making sure that we are developing great systems to support our students and their families. Obviously, a part of that as well goes towards compensating our employees. When you join up with a nonprofit, it is not a pledge to poverty, right? And so it is our commitment to sustain them and help them, support their livelihood as they do a good through the school. Our board of directors, is important to note that they are all here on volunteer basis out of the graciousness and goodness out of their hearts. And so unlike a for-profit organization where, you may have the entire board and they're all shareholders, where all the money that comes into that organization, they each get a percentage. That is not how we are set up, just to clarify that. And so we are nonprofit. It's volunteer-based in the board of director level. We are also a Christian school. And so we are unapologetically Christian, but we are a Christian school that emphasizes spirituality over religion. Now, there's a big difference between the two. With religion, the concern is really following rituals and practices, right? But with spirituality, it's really about your journey to achieve inner peace, your journey to achieve your purpose, right? And understand your place in this world, your niche in this world, here and afterwards. And so what impact are you looking to make on society? Hence our name, Legacy of Excellence Academy. And so please, we are not an organization where, we're trying to convert people or, people have to get baptized before every class, nothing like that. But we do think it's very important to emphasize spiritual development. We don't believe that students can achieve a long-lasting, deep, and life-changing education when you just focus on ABCs 1, 2, 3s, right? While we place considerable emphasis on academic achievement, as we should, there is also a considerable emphasis that we place on character development and spiritual nourishment to develop good people for our society. We unfortunately live in a society where almost on a daily basis, you see horrific acts take place. And sometimes we can't even explain that with a worldly mindset, right? And so you see a lot of people who are spiritually depraved who do these things. And this is our way of intervening by having that focus, that spiritual focus. Okay. So a note about safety. So Leia was originally conceived sort of in my heart and in my mind several years ago. And it came out of frustration, being part of different schools and school systems. We're like, man, I wish in my ideal school, I would do this. In my ideal school, I would want that. And so I started building Leia. And when I started developing it, it was really meant to be an in-person school with athletics and all the normal things that you would find in an in-person school. And then 2020 hits, right? And we all know what happened in 2020. COVID-19 was discovered, and it has literally changed how we look at and approach all walks of life, education included. And so with that, we then adapted it to be a 100% virtual school, which feels like a very safe investment to make, given the challenges that we're still seeing in schools with the constraints that they're facing. And even, with the variants coming out and the different waves, it just felt like, we would save ourselves a lot of headaches by having a virtual model. Now, this isn't to say that we're not open down the road to a hybrid design, which means, part virtual, part in person. There are different different ways you can have a hybrid design in the school. But again, that really depends on what we're seeing with this, I would say, this plague, right? This global pandemic. That would really dictate that change or that transition, as well as supply and demand. And so as more people say, hey, we want to be part of Leia, we're not in Rwanda, but we are in Zimbabwe, or we're in this part of the world, we may have to strongly consider a hybrid design. But for now, we are 100% virtual. Now, I say that with the caveat, okay, that we are not just a school designed for COVID-19 times, right? And so if someone was to say, all right, ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 is officially gone for good, that is not the last day of Legacy of Excellence Academy, okay? We are designed to not just outlast COVID-19, but to be a generational school. That is our desire, is to serve generations of students for years and years to come. We believe that our school can rival other schools that exist, be it virtual or in person, in the sense that we are trying to develop 21st century skills in students. We are concerned with building literacy skills in students. And so we are just designed in a way that we have a different model, but really similar focus to what schools typically do. Okay, I'm going to pause and ask Simone to speak a little bit about affordability and our commitment in this department.
Wonderful, thank you, thank you. So around affordability, this is what I really appreciate and love around Legacy of Excellence Academy. It's providing a quality elite education without that elitist price tag. As Dr. Ekwelum mentioned, you want to be able to provide these students with 21st century skills. So we're committed to the quality of the education, but also committed to make sure that there's, everyone can receive that type of education. And it's not just to those who can afford it financially, it's there for everyone. So there's an opportunity and a commitment to equity and accessibility in Leia. Tuition fees are well below those of other local, private, independent, and international schools. We're committed to making sure that financial aid for families who qualify, that's available to them. But I just cannot stress enough our passion and commitment to making sure that we really provide a solid elite education without making the price tag ridiculously expensive, where those who most need this kind of education, can't reach it. We're committed to making sure that it is attainable and providing that support, not just saying it.
Absolutely. Thank you. So moving on to quality, every school that you go to their website, everyone will say we are high quality education, as they should. We want to not just talk the talk, but also walk the walk. And we believe at Leia that we are positioned to offer students a very high quality educational experience and their families as well. Speaking to that point, you can start at the executive leadership level with the board and myself. There is a wealth of experience and expertise in the field of education at that level for Leia. And so I know, she was being modest, but I would say, Simone brings a lot of experience, for example, in the field of education. She's been in education for over 20 years, has experience with teacher retention, has experience with ensuring the allocation of resources to various schools and districts to make sure that the quality of their teaching and learning is at a high level, right? We have another board member who is he works in an organization that supports teachers through virtual coaching. And so he's in that company, he's the vice president of innovation. And so he's constantly thinking about ways to innovate in education. Prior to that job that he currently works at, he was a school administrator and a school designer. So he was part of a founding team that developed the school, put the school in action, and now they have a 10-year history and they're still going strong. We have another board member, right, who has significant experience as a classroom teacher. He then went on to become a school administrator. Actually, he also, for those here who are familiar with Green Hills Academy, he was an administrator for some years at Green Hills Academy as well. I can go on and on and on about just the level of expertise on our board. And this doesn't even include myself, right? And what I bring to the table. And we are blessed to have such experience. And you can be rest assured that every decision that's made from the top is made in the best interest of your students, right? Believe it or not, there are many boards, school boards particularly, that don't have that much relevant experience. You may have some politicians, you may have people in the legal field and whatnot heavily involved on that board, but it has become rare over the years to have that much experience on a board. In terms of which curriculum standards and frameworks we utilize, I want to speak to this point here in a very nuanced way. And so you have a lot of places that say, well, we use a US curriculum, an American-based curriculum. That's wonderful, right? But again, being in touch with statistics and research shows that unfortunately the US educational system, which I'm a product of, right, doesn't rank in the top 20 most years for educational success and achievement for students. Now, does this mean that the curriculum standards and frameworks are no good? Absolutely not. I would say the US curriculum and standards and frameworks are top-notch, recognized all over the world. The sequences are amazing and very nuanced. The problem lies in the implementation of those standards and curriculum frameworks, okay? And so at Leia, what we want to do, we don't subscribe to one single educational system. What we do instead is draw from the pros, the best of different ones, combine them, fuse them together to make a great experience for our students. And so we utilize US curriculum standards and frameworks, commonly known as the Common Core, as sort of our parameters and guardrails. But in terms of the everyday approach to teaching and learning, it's very Scandinavian inspired. At the top of that list that I just mentioned, you'll find Finland, you'll find Denmark, you'll find places like that in Scandinavia. And so they really emphasize cooperative learning, project-based learning, critical thinking, and real-world application. Those are the things that we emphasize at Leia. My wonderful wife, who is the fellow co-founder of Leia, I would say my better half, she was born in Nigeria, but raised in Denmark. And so, we are so blessed that she's an immediate resource, right? Having been a product of a Danish education, as someone who sort of can tell us, hey, let's do things like that. And I've started to understand that that's why she's so much smarter than I am, because she had that education in Denmark. And so in the near future, I do hope to do some professional development myself, travel to Denmark, maybe take a tour of the different schools and just gather some insight that we can bring back to Leia, because whatever they're doing there, it works, okay? And so that's what we want to do at our school. Also to ensure high quality and to make sure that our teachers are maintaining high skill and high will, we're seeking to have a rich teacher development program. This is a component that's very much near and dear to my heart. It's one of the things that I've enjoyed as an administrator is developing teachers, adult learning, keeping it going. I would say that the two biggest killers to a teacher's career, anyone's career really, is complacency and ignorance, right? But having a robust teacher development program that is continuous, where teachers are constantly being coached, they're being evaluated, being supported with resources, being exposed to professional development opportunities, that is our way of ensuring that they are providing our students with the very best level of education in the classroom setting, okay? To continue on this topic of quality, we do not subscribe to a traditional based grading philosophy and system. And so what is that? That is the one that we mostly have come to know in our own careers as students, where you get an A on an assignment, or you get I don't know, I got C's. Maybe none of you guys got C's in school, but I got C's sometimes. And you're left wondering, well, what aspect of the assignment did I do poorly on? What part was proficient? What specific part was deficient? What do I have to work on, And so with a traditional grading system, you're left with all those questions. Whereas in a standards-based grading system, which is what we subscribe to, learning is seen as parts to a whole. Let me give you an example. So take an essay, for example, right? If I get the essay back and I got a C on the essay, I'm left wondering, well, what exactly do I need to improve on to make sure that I don't get a C on the next essay, okay? That's in a traditional grading system. Now you take the same example with an essay, but look at it under the lens of a standards-based grading system, where that essay is opened up and you see the different parts of it. Okay, great, I got an A on the thesis statement, but it looks like I got a D on how I integrated claims and evidence. All right, now I know that when I seek extra help with my teacher, that is where we need to focus on. I don't need to spend time on the thesis statement. I got that pretty down, okay? And so that is why we turn to the system, because it also promotes a growth mindset and this idea of continuous learning, whereas the traditional model puts pressure on students to say, I have to be perfect, I have to get it now, or I'll never have a chance to revise it later. One other thing that I love about standards-based grading is that you do have multiple opportunities to revise your work. And so we know in the real world, it's never usually one and done. Even as parents, fellow parents here, we may get things wrong. It doesn't mean that we stop being a parent, right? We just continue to work on that thing until you get it. And so standards-based grading gives you that feel. It gives that, it puts students in that mindset, all right? Quick note about cultural responsiveness. And so as I mentioned, Leia was established here in Rwanda, Kigali, Rwanda, here in Eastern Central Africa. And we anticipate that the majority of our students will be from across the African diaspora, okay? I'll come back to that point in a second, but I wanna say also that we are living in a time where there aren't many examples of leadership of leaders of integrity. And it's an unfortunate reality across, you see it all over the world. Here in Rwanda, we're blessed to have a phenomenal leader in His Excellency, President Paul Kagame. He is an exception to that statement that I just made. He's been amazing and a man of high character and integrity. But widespread across the world, we don't see many examples of great leadership, okay? At Leia, we design our program to be an intervention in this reality. And a lot of what we do, as I mentioned before, And you can see it in our core values: resilience, optimism, accountability, respect, service. A lot of what we do, those core values show up in everyday, will show up in everyday operations to help build character in our students and make sure that they're constantly thinking about these core values as they go along and take them with them even when they leave the school. We also want to enlarge leadership capacity in them. So one of the courses that we'll be offering is called Stewardship. And in this course, students really grapple with their identity, and not just their identity as, students or anything like that, but who am I? What can I offer the world? What are my skill sets? What attributes make me unique? And how can I use that to serve other people? How can I become service-minded beyond just helping myself, but helping my neighbor, helping other people who may need me to be a light in their lives? And so that it will be an essential class that we offer our students. Again, going back to the point that I began to make about just paying homage to the African continent where we are based, we want to do this specifically and especially to promote positive self-concepts for our students. So can you imagine, right, going through school as a student, as an African, let's say a student in the African diaspora of African descent, and not once do you learn about greatness coming from Africa. Not once do you learn about great achievements that happened in ancient civilizations, the Songhai Empire, the Mali Empire, the Benin Empire, ancient Egypt, right? Learn about people like Mansa Musa, who is the richest man known to mankind. They can't even count his riches, you know? And so we want to portray Africa accurately and more completely than what is normally done in other schools. And again, I don't say that to disparage other schools and what they're doing, but this is verifiable. This is fact. I'm simply just listing what is commonly seen in a lot of schools. Some schools do not touch on African history. And if they do, it's very much on the surface. Some schools, if they do touch on African history or African American history, it's usually done with starting from slavery, and then it goes into the civil rights movement, and that's it, we're on to the next unit, okay? But what that does is deny centuries of rich history, right? Of civilizations that were centers of trade, civilizations that had massive kingdoms, wealth beyond comprehension, right? And so in our humanities course, for example, that is the trajectory that we take with our students. So when they come into Leia, the first humanities course will focus on pre-colonial Africa, okay? The next one will then teach them about colonial Africa, how colonialism shaped, and what the impact that it had on Africa. Because of course we have to teach the good, the bad, and the ugly as balance, right? And then we go on from there to teach them world history and et cetera, et cetera. Also, we have what's called village groups. Village groups are essentially advisory groups where students will meet, and they don't always talk about academic specific things. And so one thing that we're adding to make our school unique is that each village group will be named after an African civilization, an ancient African civilization. So they come into it with that, hey, I'm part of, Mali Empire today, right? And they have that sense of pride as they meet together in their community, their little community within the larger community. Okay. So I say all that to say that, Leia, we are currently continuing to fundraise and refine our school. Fundraising is not easy in a normal circumstance, but you have, a period of time as right now where people are still recovering from the impact of COVID, and we understood that. But we are still very optimistic, and we've still set a timeline for ourselves that is guiding our work. And so our desired timeline is that by early spring of 2022, we're looking to hire our faculty and staff, all right? By late spring, early summer of 2022, we are looking to open student enrollment for students going into grades 7 and 8 specifically. And so we are taking the approach of building up gradually, and this will allow us also to get started on our accreditation process as well. And then by early in mid-September of 2022, we plan on just screaming, yes, we are open, cutting the red ribbon to the school, inviting, hopefully we'll see a lot of you all there to just really join us in celebrating the grand opening of our school. And so we thank you, we're hopeful, and we hope that you guys will continue to support us as we push forward in this timeline. And we have something to offer you. I'll give Simone the floor again.
Wonderful, thank you. Just wonderful information. It's so exciting. So we don't want to send you away empty-handed. As a token of our appreciation for your time, we know it's Sunday and you could be doing other things, but you're here with us. So we appreciate that. So a token of our appreciation for your time today, we will be offering your child, an exclusive free virtual writing workshop and seminar with Dr. Ekwelum 2 weeks from today. So Dr. Ekwelum, just so you know, he's a former, speaking of modesty, he's a former English language arts teacher. I know he mentioned he was a humanities teacher, but even more specifically, he's a former language arts teacher, and he majored in creative writing as an undergrad. So this is a powerful moment where at no cost to you, he would provide this workshop to your children. So that's really exciting, and thank you. So as we know, being able to richly articulate your ideas is vital in life. So this is a extremely important session. Definitely wouldn't want to miss it, and so take advantage of it. So please register. Once you get the link, you get more information on how to register. You'll get some helpful tips and tricks in participating in this session. And we hope that you find it beneficial for your child. So again, we appreciate you joining us. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So please register. We will follow up this session with an email that will include that link, again, free of charge. Knowledge is power. And, we know that some of you here today, your children may be enrolled at another school currently, and that's okay. We hope that the tools that we can equip them with during this workshop will be used to supplement what they're getting or possibly not getting in their current school context. And so please take advantage of it. We're happy to offer it. All right. So we are at the end of our session today. As I stated in the beginning, we are not going to do a Q&A session today, but again, please, we want your questions. What we've given you today is just a glimpse, a snapshot of who we are. There are many, many more details and many more things we could share, many nitty-gritty details that we can share, obviously. And so if you have any questions at all, please email us at info@legacyrw.org. All right. No question is a foolish question. We value it, and it will help us learn as well. It might even help us think of something that maybe we haven't thought about yet. If you're looking for updates, we ask that you please visit our website. That is sort of the home base where you can find, our social media pages. And so we have an Instagram page, we have a Facebook page, we have a LinkedIn page, we have a Twitter page. And so we really try to provide information all over the place. And so, please keep up with that. Also, if you at the end of this session, you're like, man, this is fantastic. This school is great. I want to help them get off the ground. I want to spread the word about Leia. Please also feel free to go to our website and support, right? And you can share with other people. Word of mouth is very powerful as well. And people, you all are free to support in that way as well. Of course, it's needed and it is much appreciated, okay? So again, thank you again for your presence today. We're super blessed to have you. Murakoze Chine, thank you so much. I will continue to work on my Kinyarwanda, and I hope you have a great work week and school week. Take care. God bless.